Thank you very much, and great to have a great turnout again. It's 2 years ago when I was last time here on stage, and I can tell you many things happened in the last 2 years, and I will a little bit touch on it. The title of my presentation is, Your Future is Built on What You Do Today. And I will touch on it, why this actually is quite important. It starts today, not tomorrow. And I didn't understand all what Christoph was saying, but I had a good, simultaneous translator, so at least, it felt like he's a real open source believer, which is great. So, but first, let's go a little bit back. Actually, it's not so far back. IT was truly standing alone. If you had an IT issue, you went somewhere in the basement, and there were people who knew how to deal with IT, and they pretty much gave you what you wanted, okay? It was very controlled, very isolated, it was down somewhere in the basement, usually it was pretty cold. In the meantime, technology is absolutely everywhere. It's not just in the data center somewhere in the basement, it is everywhere, okay? It's out on the edges, whatever, in your retail stores, it's, somewhere on your desk, it's in your palm, it's everywhere. And the problem is, it belongs to kind of anybody. So it's not just IT is owning the technology and is dealing with it. Marketing and the field and the engineers, everybody owns technology, and it's kind of, again, it's everywhere. So when you look at it, technology absolutely is connected to everywhere, and everything is connected to technology. So there's nothing anymore which does not have a connection to technology, which kind of is a great thing, because it drives at the end, our whole, also society. And what comes with this, technology has also a very disruptive effect. Disruption, the word on one side sounds a little negative. Actually, I think it's a good thing. It's just a question on which side of the disruption you are standing. Are you the one who is disrupting, or are you the one who is being disrupted? Okay? So if you have been in the horse carriage business, when the cars came, got invented, maybe this was not the best business long-term to be in, okay? So whatever technology, whatever the cars clearly disrupted, whatever the horse carriages, okay? Or if you have been in the, in the telegram business, maybe the telephone, disrupted there. And I can give many examples, not just going, 100 years back, also nowadays with companies, some companies got disrupted and other companies are disrupting, okay? And it's very important that you really have to decide where you want to be, and the disruption innovation has happened all the time for many, many decades. The big difference today is the speed. It is happening at lightning speed. And if you think you're safe today, you cannot be anymore in a safe place maybe tomorrow. Because there are new companies coming into your field you have never even dreamed of. And that is the problem. You're suddenly dealing with brand new competitors. Gartner put it actually quite nicely in a statement. They said organizations that haven't modernized their application architecture and infrastructure to support digital business will fall further behind new entrants and fast-moving competitors. One striking finding is that the top performers are building more technology in-house than other enterprises. It's also a very clear movement. It's that more and more technology now, new applications are built in-house. Everybody needs to become digital. What does it mean to become digital? The differentiation comes from zeros and ones, just in different combinations, and a lot of them. So software is becoming the competitive advantage and the competitive disadvantage for any organization. If you're a government organization, if you're a bank, if you're a retailer, if you're an insurance company, if you're a car manufacturer, doesn't matter. Zeros and ones are making the difference. And that's why everybody needs also now developers. There's a war for talent, and you have to be kind of there on the edge to be competitive and be on the disrupting side and not on the being disrupted side. So what should we do? We ask our customers, what are the top 3 challenges you're dealing with? And they came back, these were the top 3, saying, first, I have to kind of build a cloud strategy. Everybody's talking about cloud. Cloud is very, very important. So how do I deal with this? So first, you should build a strategy. Then it's all about building new apps faster. What are new apps? These are your new digital assets. That's what makes you more competitive compared to your competitors. Okay, so it's very critical that you're better in building new applications, new digital services in a faster and a better way. And the third one was optimizing your existing, infrastructure, modernizing your existing IT. As was just mentioned before, whatever, replacing the mainframe and going to an open systems and x86, architecture. So, but very, very important, if you want to achieve these three things before, technology is super important, but it's not just technology. If you just apply technology, you buy new software, you buy new hardware and so on, it does not do the trick. You also have to think about what you do with your processes, and also especially how do you deal with culture, with the people, with the mindset your organization has, because if you don't worry about this and you just acquire and spend a lot of money on technology, it's a good starting point, but it will not get you the results which you need. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about culture first. Talked about open source. Why is open source becoming also so popular, and what are kind of the elements of open source? There is a specific culture in this whole open source communities, and it's things around collaboration. Everybody works with everybody, and everybody works with everybody because everybody is transparent. Everybody sees everything. Nothing gets hidden. If everybody sees everything, everybody works kind of together, you're sharing problems, shared problems are just solved in a much, much more efficient way, okay? And then if everybody has to work together around the globe, hundreds of thousands of people, if you don't adhere to certain standards, you will not be able to work together. So also then open standards are built through this whole kind of system. And a very important cultural element also within these open source communities is something which is called meritocracy. Meritocracy means the best idea wins. Meaning it's not about what is your position and what is your title, so whatever you're the CEO and whatever you say, then this will get implemented. It is about what is the best solution for the problem. And in open source communities, it's very interesting. You have one problem, and you suddenly get like 10 different proposals for solutions because everybody wants to solve it. And then there's a debate which solution kind of is the best one, and then usually always the best idea wins, independent of who had the idea. Very, very important principle. We at Red Hat, we actually applying this kind of culture also like within our company, not just within, let's say the engineers. That's how we live in a completely open, transparent way. Kind of in our world, trust is giving. Everybody is collaborating. By default, everything we have in the company must get shared. It's not the opposite, that I think I have to debate on what gets shared. Everything must get shared, except there may be legal requirements which we cannot share. I probably cannot share with you whatever the next company which we are acquiring, because it's kind of, that's kind of confidential information, I'm allowed to do this, and probably it's not allowed to whatever share the salary of everybody with everybody, because there are certain laws prohibiting this. But if there's not a specific law prohibiting, to share data, by default it is shared. Okay, this transparency is just a fundamental element. So when you look at Red Hat, or when you look at this, that we always talk about if you want to be competitive, or what does competitiveness means? We're working in the market, which again has more and more competitor, but still a big potential. And I always say competitive is IQ. So do you have truly smart people multiplied by the engagement level? Why I'm saying this? If you're like in a software company, when I talk about our competitors, I don't want to name them, but our competitors try to hire the smartest people on the planet as we try to hire the smartest people on the planet, and also usually the companies try to hire the smartest people on the planet, okay? So usually from a pure IQ perspective, you're not usually better than your competitor. What makes the difference is how your people are engaged. If you have high IQ people who are suddenly inspired, and they work collaboratively together, in an open kind of culture environment, like living meritocracy and so on, then the sky is absolute limit. Interesting, Harvard Business Review did an interesting study connecting a belief and a purpose of employees, to their outcome. And what this bar down here says, that if you have the same person, kind of with the same IQ, if this person is kind of unsatisfied for whatever reason, whatever, because he has to work in an environment which is bad, whatever the manager is bad, whatever the reason is, the person is kind of unsatisfied, compared with somebody who is really inspired, and is fully motivated and committed to what they are doing, the difference is over 3x. Meaning you have kind of the same expense and you get 3 times, the output. Okay? So that's why we are focusing completely, what can we do as an organization to make sure all our people are in this bar here, they are truly inspired, and that comes through the culture. Okay? And here on the right side is something which I usually don't share actually externally. This we're doing within Red Hat every year an associate survey where then we measure how are people kind of engaged with what they believe in, and they are kind of, the rating is, if you're above 70, it's already very, very good. And there, for example, 88% of the Red Hat employees would recommend Red Hat as an employer to their friends. Okay, is that just an outstanding kind of commitment? And you see some of the others, which really drives the culture. We consider the culture our single largest competitive advantage over our competitors. It's not the technology itself, it's our culture and then what we do with it. So I think it's very, very interesting. And when you look at our results, they're not too shitty. We have been growing like crazy over the last 15 years. We now have delivered as a company 64 quarters of consecutive revenue growth without a single exception. Think about this. 16 years on a quarterly basis, quarter over quarter over quarter over quarter over quarter, revenue grows over the prior quarter without a single exception, even through the recession 2008, 2009. There's no other single technology company out there in the world which ever, so publicly traded, which ever set this record. This has nothing to do with luck anymore. You don't get lucky 64 times. At least that's not that I have ever experienced, okay? So there's something which we're doing fundamentally right, and it's the way the type of business we're doing and the way we deal with people and the culture we are living. Okay, that at the end makes the difference and drives at the end these results. So enough about culture. You also have to address processes. When I talk about processes, it's not just your development process. Obviously, you need to become agile. Replace waterfall with agile methods, and you have Scrum teams and all of this. But you also have to look at your business processes. You have to look at ruthless automation. Very, very important when you do things. Absolutely ruthlessly, being ruthless about automating things. Don't touch it, because otherwise, again, you will not become scalable. And things also like your security processes. So it's really end-to-end, and be ruthless about it. Okay, and don't say, oh, we have done this always this way. Doesn't matter. Take a real hard look, think outside the box, and approach this. So it's not just technology, it's the culture and the process. But now let's talk a little bit of technology, because we are still a technology company. And when we talk about technology, important to understand is, what's the position of open source today? Open source position many years back, there was more like open source did things, let's start with Linux, it was an alternative to Unix, okay, in a different way. So we kind of open source replaced kind of an existing category, had kind of a different alternative. Today, the open source communities are the engine of innovation. All the innovation out there, be it in cloud, be it in artificial intelligence, be it in big data, be it in mobility, pick the topic you want. It all happens in open source community. There is not, these problems are just too big. There's not that the innovation can happen in the closed four doors of a classic, big company. Like in the past, a lot of innovation happened within IBM and Cisco and whatever, HP and these type of companies. Nowadays, innovation, the problem is way too big. It's happening in open source communities. Thanks to the large Web 2.0 companies like Google, like LinkedIn, Facebook, and so on, they're contributing a lot, and open sourcing all their codes. When you think about Kubernetes as becoming the default, choice for container orchestration is an open source project, which was launched by Google. So the innovation is happening out there in open source communities. Also, Gartner already back in 2016 clearly said open source software industry saturation is complete. Think about this, already back in 2016. Today, 95% of mainstream IT organizations leverage non-trivial open source software assets within their mission-critical IT portfolio, whether they know it or not. It is a reality, it's everywhere. I never get the question anywhere ever, oh, is it secure? Can I use it? I got these questions endless 10, 15 years ago. I'm with Red Hat already 15 years, so believe me, I know what I'm talking about. we don't get this anymore, and that's the good news. And we have so many examples of, of government organizations, of telecommunication companies, of banks, of insurance companies, of retailers. They all use it massively, and it's becoming the default kind of type of technology they use. So now, when you look at what is the future, what is very, very clear, the future is hybrid and multi-cloud. We at Red Hat talked about that the future will be hybrid already 5-6 years ago. Nobody was believing it. Everybody was saying, oh, it will be 100% public cloud. Amazon will take over the world, and maybe Microsoft will a little bit follow with Google, but it will be all public cloud. Reality came a little bit in. There's a lot of legacy, and there's a lot of inertia, and things will not go away. Not everything is perfect in a public cloud. So it's clearly a hybrid world, and hybrid means on one side, you still will have technology running on dedicated physical servers, which will not go away out of certain reasons. You will have still a lot of your resource in classic virtualized environments. Then you will have a true private cloud for your new cloud-native applications, but still in a private environment. And then in addition to this, you will have the choice, and that's a good thing, of many public clouds. It is not just AWS, it's also Azure, and it's also Google, and it's also whatever Alibaba and IBM, and often many local telcos, be it Orange, be it Telefonica, who also offer you cloud services in a public cloud. So it's the mixture, and these different footprints will exist for many, many, many years to come. The only difference from one company to the other will be what is the share mix between these different footprints. How much are you still running, in a classic virtualized environment, or truly in a private cloud or in a public cloud? The most important now is how do you move things, okay? Which is very, very important. And I will touch on this in a minute. So this picture, many of you lived through this, and you know this, okay? Some of these companies exist, some of these companies don't exist anymore, and some of the companies have complete different business, okay? So they own the complete stack, top to bottom. We know this well. We right now have the risk to be in the same picture with just replacing the names. What is Amazon at the end? What is Azure? It's kind of providing a complete kind of stack, and we have the same risk. What do the big cloud providers try to do? They obviously try to connect you as much as possible to their platform. The same way as IBM and Digital, HP, and so on did before. No difference. They try to really addict you to it. Okay? They're like whatever drug dealers. They give things away, and then you suddenly get addicted. And they have great services, no doubt about this. But the question is, how can you ensure that you're not being locked in? And that's what now companies realize more and more and more. I have to be careful on how I deal with the public cloud providers, because otherwise I'm the same trap as a couple decades ago, and then it's coming with somebody has has kind of all your data, and you have no way to exit from them. They will take advantage of it. It's just a reality. That's human behavior. So we have to put a huge focus on how can we say we want to use the benefits of kind of this public cloud provider, but make sure we're not have to live up with the disadvantage of it being locked into one. And that's what customers realize, and that's where I want to explain in the next slide, where now everything around containers and container platforms come in. Okay. We are right now also let's say, still so successful, and I think we will be also successful in the future, because when you look at the different footprints, we now have established kind of an abstraction layer, which is in our terms called the OpenShift product. OpenShift is at the end, Kubernetes, enterprise Kubernetes plus some additional functionality. And the beauty with it is, it runs on all these different footprints. Meaning you can run your containerized application on OpenShift, on bare metal, on your virtualized environment, be it virtualized with Hyper-V, be it virtualized with VMware, be it virtualized with our own virtualization from Red Hat. You can run it in your private cloud, private cloud again from VMware, your private cloud based on OpenStack, and other technologies, or it can run anywhere in a public cloud. We showed actually at our summit 2 weeks ago at our big user conference in the US, complete dynamically public cloud bursting and load balancing between the different clouds, where we're moving workloads without touching the applications, literally automatically from Amazon to Azure back to your in-house private cloud based on certain criteria you want to kind of, based on latency and whatever you have, move the workload around. So if you build the abstraction layer, you can use all the advantages which the different cloud providers give you without being locked in. And we have now endless examples who want to do this. One of our earlier customers has been Amadeus. You maybe know the travel booking, system where Amadeus, when they started, they are now also in the hotel business. They developed a new applications that I have to have now this application available not just in my own data center. They have one of the largest data centers actually in Europe, just outside Munich. But in this case, they needed something in the US because they needed to be closer to the customer. So now they have, for example, this system running in the Google Cloud and in their own data center, and they just completely dynamically move things back and forth. Forwerk, is another very good example. Just talked to them also last week. Forwerk, maybe the Thermomix, like the cooking pot. This kind of, probably, whoever's in cooking, will know it. It's pretty much a cooking pot which is connected. It's an IoT device, okay? And since it got connected, they are right now selling more than 1 billion worth of revenue just of these cooking pots, which is a lot, around the whole world. And they had all the applications in Amazon, hardwired to Amazon, not completely being stuck. So now they're doing business in over 100 countries, and they had the requirement in certain countries that the data stays local, where Amazon has no data center. So they're already kind of with this already blocked, saying, how can I even do their business because my application runs just on Amazon and they don't even exist in that country. So they clearly said, I must have an abstraction layer to, first of all, be not locked into Amazon, but also not being locked out of business in countries where Amazon is not even present. So now they're doing this everything in OpenShift, and they can put this whatever in China on Alibaba, or they could put this in the US on Amazon, or on AWS, or here in Europe on somebody else. So it's very, very important that you have this abstraction layer so that you're not, at the end, locked in. So why Red Hat? Very simple. We are an enterprise-class software company with an open source development model. Open source is not a business model. Open source is our production system and how we develop. All our products, which you know from us, Red Hat Enterprise Linux and JBoss and everything, OpenShift and so on, are originated in here out of these over 1 million projects in these open source communities. Our 5,000 or 6,000 developers work 100%, not 99%, 100% in these open source communities. Every single line of code we're doing goes back in there. 100%, not 99%, okay? And out of this, then we build our, as you know, community distributions like Fedora in the case of Linux, and then build our enterprise offering with all, the certifications, the support, long life support, and so on. Security features, we're talking about whatever, Spectre and Meltdown, it was a big issue. The day it came out, we had the fix for it, because we already knew months before, from Intel, because we're working so close with Intel, okay? So we truly make enterprise software consumable for enterprise customers. Or we make open source software consumable for enterprise customers by preserving the advantages of open source and eliminating the disadvantages of open source. What are disadvantages? It changes every single day. You don't build your house on sand. You build your house on a good basement and a good foundation. Okay, so that's where we get the certifications from all the ecosystem against a solid foundation. But still important, this solid foundation is 100% open source. The single only piece in the products which belongs to us is our logo. This is the trademark belongs to Red Hat. Everything else is 100% open source. There's not a single piece of, I open source 95%, but the real value, the 5% remaining, I keep closed, and this is kind of how I monetize it. That's not what we are doing. We truly add value to the free technology, and that's at the end what you're paying for as a customer. So to fast forward, what is our advantage? It's on one side definitely our strengths in Linux. When you think about what is containers, containers is Linux. It's just a different implementation of Linux, splitting the operating system in two parts, into the kernel space and into your user space, okay? But it's a service. That's obviously why we also lead in containers, because we are clearly the leading Linux company. It's clearly our leadership in open source, in all these communities. It is our strategy around hybrid cloud, which we started 5 years ago. The world is hybrid, will be hybrid for many years to come, and our complete portfolio is geared towards making the life easier for you as a customers to thrive in this hybrid world. Then obviously our comprehensive portfolio, don't want to go in all to the details. And last but not least, also again, our culture, our people, the way we work with you, because we also help you bringing the open source culture to you. And we have more and more customers saying, I love your technology and that's great, but help me making the cultural transition within my company. That's what we're also now be doing more and more. So I think that's about Reddit. To wrap it up, in addition to us doing all of these things, we're working super, super closely with partners, with the communities, and with customers. And we have more and more customers. And I love what Susan was saying here about that also companies start to contribute to the open source communities because it further supports and gets these movements going, okay? So we have in the meantime many, many large organizations who we helped to become contributors in communities, okay? And help the products to advance without being the owner of these products, but then still being a beneficiary of, of these features. So it's very, very important you build it there truly together. So if there's one thing you have to take home, it is the future is open, it is hybrid, it is multi-cloud, and if you do this with Red Hat, it is absolutely clearly any application in any environment without any lock-in. Thank you very much.